I am Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we would like to welcome Branford Marsalis to our film composers panel for Rustin. And Branford, this movie has been getting all kinds of awards buzz, Oscar buzz since the moment it started premiering at film festivals. What does it mean to work on something so important as this one depicting the lead up to the iconic 1963 March on Washington?
Well, to be honest, I didn't really think of it as what it's become when we were doing it. I was too busy fighting with the director all the time. And George, I love George, but we fight a lot because he has very strong opinions about music, incredibly strong opinions. And and sometimes I'm like, man, that's really off base. It's not even going to work, and he doesn't care. And we come to a middle point, and this is my fourth film with him, so we have our routine that's full of very funny wit and dagger and dark humor and disagreements. So in that process, we came up with something that he was satisfied with, and then it's over. And I wasn't. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that it's getting all of this buzz. Not because it's not a great film. It is a great film. The actors, I mean, from top to bottom, are fantastic, and George does a fantastic job of bringing out the emotional best in all of the characters in the movie.
And I mean, Colman Domingo, come on,
Yeah.
he plays Bayard Rustin, the real life civil rights leader. And how would you describe Coleman's performance, and what did he bring to the movie specifically?
I mean, Colman is doing what Colman has done for the last 30 years. It's just, I think this is his first time as a lead, but I worked with him on Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. My daughter made me watch him when he was on Euphoria. And he brings that same kind of intensity to every role, depending on what the role is. But he brings the intensity, and he absorbs the personality of the character. And I guess the Bayard Rustin in real life was a very complex figure. And I think it allowed Colman to show different sides of himself rather than the sometimes one-dimensional nature that specific characters bring to the party.
He's really good in Color Purple too. I hope people.
Yes. Wow, that's you going back on that one. Yeah, yeah. He's great. I mean, he's just great. The whole cast, though. Jeffrey Wright's fantastic. I'm forgetting everybody, of course. But Michael Potts was great. They were all good, and I know a few of them. CCH Pounder was great. It was just a great cast.
And Rustin opens up on images of Black people being accosted, and then this little Black girl hopping down the street. And over the background, there's this very kind of haunting piano score that we hear as an audience. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was one of our last arguments. And I hired this trombone choir to play this very majestic thing, because I think that all of those individuals who broke those barriers, I preferred for the music to be majestic. And George said, nope, it needs to be more ominous. And the song that the pianist is playing is an old gospel song called Woke Up This Morning, with my mind on Jesus. It's the same song that the young men are singing towards the end of the movie when they're outside of the March on Washington. Woke up this morning. You just slow it down and you play it very simply, and you take your time and allow the sustained pedal to remain for the whole thing. But it was actually George's idea. I have to give him credit, and for once he was right. No, it was it. He has a really smart mind, so it's fun working with him.
I want to hear the DVD commentary with both of you
Oh
guys.
my God, you should. You should. Everyone, when we're in the studio doing it, the banter between he and I is quite hilarious.
And there's a moment at the beginning where we meet all of the people in power, played by Jeffrey Wright, Chris Rock,
Right.
Glenn Turman, etc. And there's this kind of lively, bubbly jazz number that comes in and out of those moments. What was the inspiration for that piece?
George has some really. First of all, George dislikes classical sounds in his scores, and that was one of the big discussions in this one. There's going to be a point where strings have to be used, but I already know him. Like I said, it's my fourth time working with him. So in the very, very first scene, it's like this constant dialogue and no strings. Well, you can't really have like an R&B, but you could have an R&B band playing like a groove for 3 minutes. But what could create the propulsion that the scene deserves? So obviously to me, it was not just a jazz group per se, but it was specifically a big band playing that 1930s, 1940s style of swing, because that's when jazz was dance music. So it had to have the same propulsion that dance music has to this day, or it wasn't going to work. So I hired my brother Winton's band, the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. I hired those guys and had them come in to play it because I know that's what they do for a living. And so the whole idea was to create that motion, and it works really well, better than I thought it would when I started working on it.
And there is a lot of jazz in the movie. There's a lot of bass too. I could picture, the stand-up bass as I heard it in a few scenes. It
Absolutely.
brought me back to my orchestra days when I played violin.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think the acoustic bass is probably one of the more powerful instruments in music. It is clearly powerful in an orchestral setting, but in a jazz setting, an acoustic bass, when it's played without amplification, it's like the drum set and the bass are interesting because the drum set is a percussive instrument, but it has melodic qualities when played correctly.
Mm.
And the bass is a melodic percussive instrument as well. So it's not just that there's bass, but it has that boom, that thumpy sound. The bassist Eric Reeves is fantastic. He's known for his tone, and he works with me with a lot. He works with me with regularity, and he knows how to use the instrument to create that driving percussive force when he plays.
There's this really emotional flashback scene to 1942 where we see Rustin beaten up because he refuses to leave the bus. He tells the
Right.
police, if I move, this child will never know that an injustice has taken place. Such an important line. And during that scene, it's almost completely silent except for the singular saxophone that helps us get through that moment. What can you tell us about that?
Uh, that was written as a saxophone with a 16-piece chamber orchestra. But as I said earlier, George hates strings. He'll deny that for the record. That's not true, but he just really doesn't like them very much. So when we recorded it, he said nothing. And when I heard it, the strings were gone. So again, that's a George idea. And it does work. It works because I think with George and the way he hears music, sometimes the larger the music is, it tends to take away from the scene and what's happening. So because I was playing with the orchestra at the time, but playing in isolation because I know George likes to move things around, it does still capture the same emotional quality that I looked for because I performed it with the orchestra.
Gotcha. And the actual March on Washington scenes toward the ends, there's a lot of fun instruments, the sounds of people clapping, and had a real energy to it. What was your big goal in making those scenes come alive?
Well, in any scene like that, the hardest thing to maintain is propulsion, especially with scenes and cuts. And George wants a different sound every time there's a cut. Every time there's a cut, he wants the music for when they're making the posters and setting up everything. Music when the trucks are coming in with all of the equipment, the amplification in the stages and all of these things. He wants music to go when the audience is coming from the train station. And he came up with this idea of using hand claps. And I said, yeah, that would be great. So I hired some of my musician friends when the session was over and said, yeah, we got to do some hand clapping. They said, are you kidding? I said, no. And I wrote it out. I wrote out the beats and said, you clap this, you clap this, and I'll clap that. And just gave it to George and to Jill DeBeasy, who was our music editor. And they, George decides how much of what I do he wants in certain places. And it does have that thing where it keeps switching from scene to scene and sound to sound, but it still maintains the propulsion.
An award season is heating up. You've already been nominated at the Hollywood Music and Media Awards for Rustin. And what would it mean if you were to go all the way to the Oscars for this movie?
That would be cool. I mean, it'd be flattering. Um, I don't really compose for film for a living.
Mm.
I have these other things that I do, these playing concerts and all of that other stuff. So what I enjoy most about it is the work and the process. And maybe you get a nomination, that would be incredible. That's nice, but it's not really a motivation for me. I think it would really be a motivation if this was my profession all the time, but it would be a great honor to be nominated. I don't expect it. There are a lot of great composers who do this all the time and are more deserving, but it would be nice if it happened. It would be really cool.
And where can people hear you next, Branford? What's next on your plate?
Oh, as you can probably see, there's boxes and stuff back there. I'm actually moving, so I'm not playing anywhere till 24. I'm going to the World Saxophone Congress next week in the Canary Islands, and once that's done, I'll just be loading up boxes. So we're going to hit the road again mid-January 24.
Well, thank you for chatting with us today, and stick around for the group panel at the end here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.